We'll welcome you to the meeting of the Logan-Cache Airport Authority Board. We're glad to have you here and see the interest that you have in the welfare of the airport. We'll begin by calling for a motion to approve the minutes from the November meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We approve the minutes as provided for the November 4th meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We need to make an appointment for the at-large member. For those of you who may not understand, the board is made up of 3 representatives from the county and 3 from the city, and those 6 appoint a 7th at-large member. That appointment takes place every 2 years, and my term is expiring. Are there any nominations for a at-large member?
I nominate you again.
Are you willing to do it again? Of course you are.
Of course I am.
Yeah.
Is there a
I'll
second?
that.
It's been moved and seconded that John Kerr continue as the at-large member. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next bit of business is an annual event of selecting a chairman. Are there any nominations for the chair of this board?
How could this board function without John as the chair? I nominate John as the chair if he's willing to continue.
I'd second that.
It's been moved and seconded that John Kerr serve as the chair. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill Francis has been serving as the vice chair. His term is obviously up as well. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Bill again to serve.
Okay. Bill has been nominated to serve. Is there a second?
Absolutely second.
It's been moved and seconded that Bill continue to serve as the vice chair of the board. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. With that business out of hand, we'd like to try something a little different. Just so everybody knows the names and numbers of the players, let's take a minute and all introduce ourselves, and we'll start with the fire department in the back row and move forward. Just tell us your name and your connection to the airport.
Nate Thompson, I'm the Assistant Chief of Operations at Logan Fire Department. Kind of oversee the fire ops for all our operations. This is Captain Stevens, who I'll let introduce himself, but he's our ARF team specialist moving forward. So.
Okay.
Well, you already said it. Sorry. I'm Robert Stevens. I'm a captain paramedic for Logan City Fire Department. I'll be the Arf Training specialist for the airport. It won't take effect until we're done with our training in May. It'll be a 5-day training event. The goal is to have everybody at North Logan Fire, or the North Logan Fire Station, are certified, so we're not spread out. So it'll be team-oriented at that station. So you'll have a full response. You'll always have a full response, but you'll have a full response specialist if there's an event that there's an emergency. So thanks for having me here. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Scott?
Scott Weaver, operate the Aviation FBO. Been there since, had about since 2004.
Tim?
I'm Kim Hall. I've been at the airport 25 years. Been with Leading Edge for almost 16. Been out there for a while.
Okay. Zach?
I'm Zach Olsen, I'm an aviation engineer at JAB, and he does day one. He likes it.
Kim?
Kim Sylvester, project manager of aviation with JAB.
Lee?
Lee Ivy, airport manager.
I'm Judd Hill, Utah State Program Manager with Armstrong Consultants.
Barron?
Barry Weisman, Utah State University, Director of the Pilot Program, our new Aviation Masters and Drone degree.
Aaron?
Aaron Dykes, the Chief Flight Instructor, Director of Airport Operations for Utah State. Been there 15 years.
Carl?
Carl Ward, Cache County Council.
Bill?
Bill Francis. I've been in the airport business for probably 50 years.
Old guy.
Yeah. Get to the happy hunting ground.
Janine?
I'm Janine Allen. I'm always here.
Jeannie?
She's our record keeper, and
Yeah.
she's our memory. So, Jeannie Simmons, Logan City Council.
Brett Hughey, Cache Valley Electric.
Good morning, I'm David Zook, Cache County Executive.
Okay, thanks for that exercise. Now we know who we're all dealing with. Lee, manager's report.
Good morning, everyone. It's been a while since we've had a meeting, so there's probably more items to discuss. I'm going to start out with our status of our AIP projects, those that are finished but still open on the books, and those that we are still having to complete. Starting off with last year's runway overlay project. I believe all we have left on this project before we can close it out is the 10% retainage to Staker Parsons. But before that can happen, we need to be reimbursed for the damage done to the X's, which we allowed them to use. It turned out that one of their employees put gasoline in them instead of diesel fuel, and that's why they quit working. I'm still trying to get the cost of that. I know we had to order a generator for one of them because it was completely fried, and the other one, they were able to repair. I imagine this is going to be at least a $10,000 to $15,000 item. So that's good. And we don't want that to go back to the FAA. So they're going to have to pay the airport for that up front rather than just take it out of the retainage amount. Because if we just take it out of the retainage amount, then that's just the money the FAA recoups. So we're going to have to work out those arrangements on those X's. The second item on my list was the CARES grant that we received last year for $23,000. It was that money went towards primarily towards the concrete pads that were replaced around the Arf building on both sides. And then for the remainder, it had to go for operational expenses, so basically it went towards salaries, and I submitted that to the e-invoice system in one lump sum with all the appropriate paperwork to close that out, and I got a rejection. So I'm working with Jesse Lyman from the Denver ADO, and we do not know why they rejected it, but the e-invoicing network is a private company which basically the FAA and other government agencies hire to do the financial end of these grants, and it's a nightmare once there's a rejection or you're logged out of the system. So I'm working with Jesse Lyman on that, and we're trying to find out why they rejected payment on that. I know the finance department is wondering when we're going to get that reimbursement, but my hands are tied. It's something that I've got to have the Denver ADO work out. The next item is the fog sale project from the state that was scheduled to take place last fall, but by the time we got the grant and the cold weather set in early, we elected to do that this spring. So that project is still out there to be done, and hopefully we get it done before the latter part of May.
Lee, are they still holding the pricing on that for us?
Yes, it's still the same. We got a grant for $104,219 And we'll be able to stay under that. And the fourth item is a new grant, which we recently received. It's part of the Airport Recovery Act associated with the CARES grant. So we have a new grant of $59,000. Here again, this grant has to go for operational expenses, personnel, cleaning, anything to do with preventing the spread of the COVID virus. Cannot be used for airport development projects. So we need to determine where that's going to go. And I think as I move on down through my list of buildings, grounds, and maintenance, we have several things that we're probably going to need this money for to cover those items. Moving on to that section of my report with the grounds and the vehicle maintenance. I previously mentioned the two closure X's that were damaged, and I don't know the cost of that, but I've made several calls and I keep getting the runaround. Basically,
A question on that, Lee. My understanding is that Parson is aware and agreeable. They're just waiting for a number to know.
Yeah, they're aware of it, and they know that they're not going to get their retainage amount until we take care of this item.
We're the holdup on that at this point.
Yeah, we are at this time. As a matter of fact, we don't know what the cost of the new generator is because everything that you order today, it's a long ways out before you get it. So we're still working on those, taking care of those closure X's being put back into service. This winter, we no longer were able to lease the front end loader at the same rate that we had previous years. Basically, the cost of it tripled in cost. So it was rather expensive this year to have a loader on site at the airport to put the 24-foot box blade to. Basically, we were paying close to $6,000 a month for that loader, which is very expensive. And I think we're going to have to find some other solution to this. We're probably going to have to be looking at buying our own, because that's close to $20,000 a winter that you're going to pay for a lease on a loader, and just won't take very.
How much does a front-end loader cost?
Well, a new one's, probably close to $200,000, but you could probably look at picking up a used one, because it's only going to be used in the winter operation, but it's something that we have to have.
Jeannie, I think there's other options we could do with the other rental companies and get a better price.
Well,
It might be new and fancy, but.
We looked around, and this a cat dealership that we've always gone through in the past. It was Logan City that used to lease it in the past, but when they found out what it was going to cost, they basically backed out and said, you're going to have to lease your own. And they give me several people to contact, and I couldn't find a better deal than this. And it was kind of late, when I got that information, so I just basically had to take what was available. We were lucky even to get a loader. So it's going to be an ongoing problem, leasing that loader, and it's going to be expensive too. So,
Lee, if you'll talk to me later, maybe I can help connect you to some of the vendors we've worked with.
Okay. So I'm thinking that airport grant we just received for 59, a good chunk of that's going to go to pay for this loader rental we had.
That was going to be my question. Does that $59,000, does the loader lease qualify?
Yeah, it does. It'll cover operational expenses, that grant, so it qualifies for that. Moving on, had several repair items on the trucks this winter. Mainly hydraulic related problems. We still have one hydraulic problem with the white truck, and we also have a power steering pump that needs to be replaced on the Ford. I feel for Kim, he's been operating that truck for the last month and a half without a power steering pump in it. Here again, it's becoming extremely difficult to get somebody to show up and do repairs on these trucks out there. I'm on the phone every week seeing when we're going to get somebody out there to repair them. They say, "Oh yeah, you're on the list. We're going to be there," but then they never show up. So this is, and I'm using the same company that the county I know they use. They have a contract with this company for all their repair items on their vehicles. So it's becoming more difficult. It seems like ever since we had this COVID pandemic, people just shut down, and it's hard to get people to call back, people to provide services. It's becoming more difficult. But we did manage to get through the winter, just holding the equipment together as best we could. We did one time, we had the blower where the clutch was slipping on it. I did manage to get the mechanic out there in a timely fashion to adjust that clutch and get it back up in operation. But we still have some repair items on the snow removal equipment that we're going to be needing to address. Of course, all that equipment is 35 to 40 years old, so repairs are to be expected on equipment that old. All of the new lighted signs that we had installed in conjunction with the overlay project on the runway have a factory defect in them, and I've basically had to go in on each sign and turn off a switch. And Logan-Cache is going to be sending me out something to plug into the board, and it's supposed to reset it. I haven't received that yet, but if that does not work, we're looking at replacing the boards on each one of those signs. They are under warranty, and so Logan-Cache is aware of it. They were aware of it when they sold us the signs. They knew that they had this factory defect, but we still, that's the signs we got shipped to us.
You knew they had a stack of defective ones and they sent it to us?
Yes, they did, and we were behind schedule even to get those signs because here again, because of COVID, production shut down. So.
Wow, that's amazing.
Arf Training, which is previously mentioned, is scheduled for May 9th through May 13th at the airport. It'll be conducted on the abandoned runway. We still have the same company, 139 Fire, bringing in a mobile fuselage, and it's going to be a week-long training, and a lot of new personnel are going to be trained at that, along with those who have trained in the past, and this allows them to meet probably 75% of their training requirements for the year. So this has worked out very good. However, the cost has gone up. It started out at $15,000 when we first started. Now it's up to $20,000 for this training. So we will probably have to go in and make it a budget amendment to cover that extra $5,000. Plus we have a propane tank that we have to lease, and so there's a few other expenses entailed in that. Also, our 139 inspection is scheduled for May 23rd, 24th, and 25th. I had to reschedule that because when they wanted to come out was the same time that we were going to be doing the ARF training, and I said I can't handle both at the same time. So we did reschedule that for the latter part of the month, and I'm hoping that we have the runway 10-28 fog seal project completed by that time, because that is one item that we was uncompliant with last year. So hopefully that's done, and then when they show up, that there won't be any questions about that. As a follow-up of last manager's report when we met in November. We still are dealing with Mr. Wilkinson's hangar that has no door on it, and we were told that they were going to install a door, and that hasn't occurred. So I don't know what you want me to do with this individual.
How long has that been going on?
This has been going on for the last 4 years,
Whoa.
dealing with,
There
and
hasn't been an airplane in it for at least 15 or 20.
20 years?
And the way the demand is on the hangar, there is to start putting something on, so the people that want it would love to even just rent it. They won't talk.
Isn't there a requirement that it be used for aviation purposes?
yeah, but he elects to use it for nothing. So he's not non-compliant because he's not storing anything. It's just vacant without a door on it.
Well, the fact that he hasn't completed the repairs is probably adequate for us to terminate his lease.
Okay. Do you want me to send a letter out then that lease will be terminated?
I'll sign it.
Okay, I will draft that letter up. Moving on, new hangar construction. We only have one that's being constructed at this juncture, but there should be 3 others starting this spring, and all 3 of those were granted an extension from the time that they were given permission to build a hangar. So here again, if we don't see construction on those 3 hangars, I think we need to abandon that agreement and make that property available for somebody else. We've got a great demand for hangar construction at the airport, and we only have right now those 3 spaces available.
One of them has been in process for 2 years.
Yeah, we've had, well, all of them have basically had 2 years to start construction.
That's a long time to give permission.
Yes, it is. And at this point, I haven't heard from any of them. So
Let's reach out to them, and anybody that doesn't have their steel already on order, cancel them,
okay.
if everybody's in agreement with that. I know steel has been 6 to 8 months out, and that may be the delay. But if they haven't ordered their steel by now, it won't happen this year, and we should consider canceling them. The only caveat with that is that anyone new coming on is still looking at 6 to 8 months to get their steel, and so we won't speed up the process any by canceling, but we ought to.
Is there a way to ensure when we sign the lease that they have ordered the construction materials?
We don't sign a lease until the hangar's actually
Only
received its
allocated-
final inspection. It's been built.
We've only allocated the land, and
Can we put something in the allocation?
they won't order $100,000 worth of steel until they have the lease or have the commitment. And basically, these people take a copy of the minutes to the bank and get their loan based on our allocating that land for their location. And they can't order the steel until they get the loan. And so we're the tipping point.
Well, hopefully the people the other 3 haven't already borrowed their money.
Yeah, let's.
Okay, I will make a call to the 3.
Yeah.
And find out if steel has been ordered.
are.
Okay. And I think that's it for my report. We do have one other item I put on here, but that's already been put on the agenda to be discussed later, so.
Okay. Aaron?
Hello. I was asked by John to just give a quick rundown of what goes on at the airport with the university side. So Last year in 2021, we flew 23,051 hours of flight time, which equated to about 51,883 landings. So that's a significant portion there for asking for loans and grants and stuff for the airport. During that time, we trained 381 students. We had 76 flight instructors, 12 dispatchers, 7 full-time mechanics, 3 admin office personnel. The FAA testing center had, at least for our operations, gave 180 written tests for kids going on, and we gave 174 check rides last year. 5 chiefs. I will speak to the delay. If we have to replace the motor, it used to be about 6 weeks out, then 3 months out, now it's 8 months out, so we're having to plan to get the motor that's being rehabbed here in quick time. We are growing. We're trying to increase our fleet, which currently has 28 aircraft, not including the helicopters, sorry, so 35 total aircraft that we're operating out there. That was last year. We've already purchased 3 new ones this year. We're trying to get the amount of planes up so that we can have less students per airframe. We were sitting about 15 students per airframe. Difficult to get them done in a semester with less resources. So we're trying to get that up to around 10 students per airframe. And that's pretty much where we stand at that. Do you guys have any questions operational wise?
Do you see your enrollment increasing? What do you see from the, okay.
Yeah, let's see, last fall, our private pilot course opened up with 40 slots in there, and that was filled in 8.5 hours from the time it opened. So not days, not weeks, hours. So people have to get right on there. We're trying to keep the numbers in check, so we're not putting 8,000 aircraft in the sky all at once and constantly running that. But we're also, to that end, we opened up Price Airport operations to try and drive some people down there. We have international students, international people, entities calling us all the time. So we're going to try and drive some of that down there. But again, that's the university likes growth, so it's kind of hard to stop the
train.
The train. I'm either a working cog or a removed cog, so we got to keep that rolling that direction. And with it being one of the, I guess, aviation in general being the largest growing program in the university right now, it's something they don't want to slow down if they don't have to. So
as you have 40 students come in for privates, how long will it be before they've completed the private's only the first step for them?
Correct.
Will you have that same 40 continue through the program, and how long does it usually take them to finish?
During the whole program, so it's a 4-year degree. It takes 4 years and 6 months is the average right now because of delays on examiners for the FAA. It takes the examiners 6 to 8 weeks right now at a good time when we've had bad weather and not a lot of people completing flights to get to do a check ride in the middle of summer. They're about 8 to 12 weeks behind giving a check ride to students who are current and capable. So love to put a plug in that way. If anybody knows anybody at the FAA, let's poke the bear. Other locations in the state have examiners in their own cities, and we have none here. They all have to travel here, so they get to pay a $200 travel fee on top of $600 to $1,000 check ride fee. So yes, it gets expensive, so that's why I love to poke the Salt Lake FSDO, but they see my phone number and they don't answer. So the growth is the 40 will come in, and that goes through each semester, so about 120 private pilots will come into the program at the beginning of the year. We have roughly a 10% attrition rate throughout the first year and a half, and then after that it kind of spreads out because we have the kids who are working on their 4-year, 6-year, 8-year, got married, have kids plan, and so so again, the attrition rate is not acceptable at that end, but it's also just life, family, catching up with them. But now that the airlines are hiring, our instructors have a lifespan at my employment of about 8 months. So I'll pick them up 8 months. They'll get the hours they need to help me with training new flight instructors and give me 200 hours before they go off to the airline. So that's 2.5 months. So I've got a huge turnover. We're constantly training and trying to keep these kids up to date. Having the old instructor around is very difficult. The industry is changing. We we have a whole different conversation where I see things going at a different time. But they're finding pilots off of the FAA registry and calling them and offering them jobs. So that's, general aviation is growing exponentially, airlines are growing exponentially, military needs people, they just can't get enough pilots in. That's why you're seeing a growth here in our program, is because of that. And there's, again, but that's general look at it.
Okay, thank you.
They probably know because they're experts. I don't understand the drone program and what you're doing out at the airport with that. Is that part of what you're talking about here, or is that separate?
That's a little bit, that's separate. So this is just flight students going on to become flight instructors and then try and get to the airlines. The drone program is a separate entity. It's actually trained up on campus, and there's some fields and areas that they fly that over there. We try and get some cross training so the drone pilot knows what a airline or a airplane flying pilot's doing, and back and forth. But it's, yeah, again.
They're flying somewhere else.
Yeah, they're flying the drones elsewhere. Yep.
Everybody's getting a job, right?
Everyone's getting a job. I'll say 95% job placement, because there's those 5% nobody wants to hire. But any other questions? At the end of the day, you still want to fly with somebody you can go out and have dinner with and say, that was a sucky day, and you finish eating. If that person isn't that caliber, they usually go off and go work for other entities in aviation, but not the pilot side.
Get a job in Alaska flying freight.
Or Garmin, or insert other locations, Boeing Field. We got a #1 janitor over there who used to be a flight instructor for us, so he cleans very well.
There you go.
All right. Oh, and his retirement's probably better than that.
John, can I add 1 minute to airport management with the drones?
Yes, please.
So real quick, this is the first year for aviation management degree with unmanned aerial systems. We have over 100 students in the minor and about 38 students in the major. And if you know where the ASTE field, it's across Cat Corner from Aggie Station, Old Chicago's. There's that big cross-country field. That's our primary drone flying field. So we're starting with the small UAS out there. But as Aaron said, those students have to learn everything that a private pilot does about sectionals and weather and airports and terminology to take that FAA exam. And so we've got a great contingent of those students. And every once in a while, 2 or 3 a year, start the drone and end up transitioning to the flight program. And we'll get a couple of those engineers that don't want to sit behind a computer and they like to be hands-on. And so we've acquired a lab space on campus, and it's really working well. But the second part of that is in our airport management degree, we've got a couple students that are looking for internships. So if it's possible, if Lee wants to work with the student as an internship, either paid or unpaid, we've got some opportunities. We have some students that are looking into airport management and different aspects of aviation. These are folks that either want a backup plan and have lost their medical, or they're just interested in doing other things in aviation. In addition to pilots, maintenance is another area of shortage, dispatchers, air traffic control. So we're planning on next year starting an air traffic control minor, dispatch minor, to be able to have more coming through our program that are not at the airport flying, but to broaden that base of aviation. And so our whole program has about 535 students in it now. It's tripled in the last 7 years. So with that, we've talked about capping the flight students at about 400 here. With the mountains and airspace and ramp space and pattern, that's about what we're going to get. But our maintenance program can grow, our drone program can grow, airport management can grow. And so hopefully with some opportunities in price, we'll have a chance to see that.
Are we the only institution that has airport management now? I know Westminster canceled theirs.
Yeah, Westminster's program is completely shut down. After 50 years, they no longer have an aviation program. Salt Community College had one. They're only maintenance at this time. Utah Valley does have an airport administration. It just switched to airport management. It's a little bit smaller online. But we're the only ones that have an unmanned aerial systems degree in the state of Utah. So anything with that, there's a couple classes at the other universities, but we're the ones that have most robust. We offer flight maintenance, rotor, fixed wing, as well as airport management, and a master's. We're the only one that have the master's degree in the state of Utah. The other thing is May 9th to 11th, the first Utah Aeronautics Conference. Jared Esselman is spearheading that effort. Some of you may have heard about this. So it'll be in Utah Valley this summer, and 9th to 11th of May. And they're trying to get civilian, corporate, military, education, airport owners, backcountry pilots, gliders, ballooning, all the aviation organizations, including Civil Air Patrol, to come together. And we'll be looking to host it up here in '23. So we're looking at the 21 to 23 June of 2023. And I'd propose that we have an open house on that Saturday. If we're bringing industry and hundreds of folks up here for a conference, it won't be as big as a small satellite conference. We'll host it on campus. We have access to our drones and everything at the airport, is that we propose to link it with an airport open house. This is offset from the Hill Air Force Base. I was one who drove us to be next summer so that we could do that. But I think that'd be a good time for us to have an airport open house. I know I talked to Scott about that, and he said we'll have to look at the dates and some construction, but I think it would be really good to have, again, an opportunity to showcase the airport for the community.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions? Good. Thanks,
No,
Judge.
just thank you. So we've needed a pilot lately. One of our pilots is moving back home. And to find someone, it's amazing the fraternity between the pilots that you guys kick out.
Oh, absolutely.
But what a network.
Well,
It's
both of your pilots went through Utah State.
They did, and they're average. But anyway, no, I'm just kidding. They're average. Don't you dare say that to them. They are the best. They've set the bar so high. My point is, it's a great asset that we have with what you're doing. And we are beneficiaries of it, and we appreciate it.
I should mention, we're going to do an Aviation Week the 4th of 8th of April, and you're all welcome to come out. Monday, we're going to have a drone demonstration on the quad. Tuesday will be a maintenance open house. Wednesday, we're going to land a helicopter on the quad. The dean wants to fly in. Our simulators will be open. Wednesday night is our aviation program banquet where we raise funds for silent auction for our students, give out awards. Thursday, we'll have our career conference to be able to highlight, and any industry that'd like to be there, we'll invite you to come. And then Friday, a little bit of airport open house. But we're trying to get, even the folks at the university don't really understand what we're doing. And so if you want to come see our drone lab and take a tour or come watch us fly, just give me a ring and we'll be able to hook you up out there at any time.
Is there a possibility you could email that to me?
Absolutely. I'll make sure that it goes out with the email.
Your challenges with the rest of the university community mirrors our challenge with the rest of this community.
It does.
Most people in the valley are unaware of there being an airport out there.
Well, they're also unaware that, I've told a couple of people in the last week something about the Airport Authority Board, and they're like, what is that?
Yeah.
To hook onto that, I've been asked to be part of a panel for that Utah Aeronautics Conference, and I agreed to do that. So I'll be talking to y'all, so I have all the information I need.
Can I switch the agenda just a little bit and have the corporate activity? Then we'll come to the leading edge thing, because that'll tie in better.
He's not prepared. I thought he had 10 more minutes.
I thought I had 10 more minutes. No,
He's had 2 weeks.
So with what's going on at the airport, Lee obviously hit on everything with the 2021 projects, closing out the runway, getting that done. With regards to the other aspects, or 2022 projects, and then a brief summary of the infrastructure funding.
Let's just talk about the corporate right now. Corporate flights.
And which, I'm sorry, I guess, I know we've discussed which aspects of the...
Inbound, outbound corporate flights.
Oh, on, as far as the overall numbers
Yes.
of them, the system was down and I've been on the road, so I unfortunately don't have those exact numbers.
Which was not enough notice.
I've been gone for the last 2 weeks on the roads.
Take your seat.
I apologize.
You got 10 more minutes to prepare.
Well, I was getting comfortable sitting here. Now I'm back on the hot seat. John, you did get this letter from Leading Edge Aviation. We're going to be talking about the proposed expansion of their hangar and facility at the airport in conjunction with access agreement that we have approved from Comcast They're wanting to put fiber optic lines in at the airport, and we've run into kind of a problem there because there's one area where they would like to put their lines that is going to be the same area that Leading Edge wants to add on to their building. So Comcast has been notified of this, and they're still waiting for me to send off this access agreement, but I chose not to send it to them until the board had a chance to review this and see if there was going to be a problem. And I'm going to have Janine pull up a map for everybody to see. Okay, on this map you can see the green lines, and these are the proposed areas where Comcast wants to put fiber optic lines into the airport. You can see that they're going to kind of canvass the entire hangar area at the airport.
Which green lines?
All the green lines.
All the green lines?
Yes, and basically they follow the roads and then extend down into the old hangar area and out into the hangar area at the west of the field.
And they want to do this to provide?
To provide internet access to anybody who elects to.
To the hangars?
Yes. Now, in particular, Gene, if you want to kind of point out this area right here we talked about. Okay, that area right in, well, basically that first white building there, right there. That is Leading Edge building, and that is the current dimensions of the hangar, but Leading Edge is wanting to expand, probably basically triple the size of the building. Is that right, Scott?
Roughly,
Yeah, about triple the size of the building. So where you see that green line run through the west side of that hangar, if we were allowed a Comcast to put the line in there, it basically would have to be ripped out once the hangar was added on to. And so and Comcast has been, this has been made known to them that they cannot put a line in there, so they're aware that they would have to abandon that line. But another problem that we're going to have is when that hangar expansion takes place, virtually we're going to lose all of our parking area where the employees park right now.
All of what?
All of the parking area, auto parking area.
So it's going to go to the north.
So we are going to have to provide some sort of parking area that to handle the automobile traffic that we already have at the airport. I'm thinking it's going to have to go out into the field there where we have overfull parking now. We might have to be looking at paving that area instead of just having dirt and gravel.
So what's the master plan for all of this?
Our master plan is outdated, and we're actually updating the master plan this.
I know that, but so Leading Edge, I'm going to be really a little bit, they already own all the property they want to expand onto. Is that correct?
No, that would be a new lease on that.
So, it seems like we're sort of, we're going to lose our parking, now we got to figure out something else. But it needs to be, in my mind, it needs to be a little bit more organized. Like, Leading Edge is going to take over this space, but they are going to pave these spaces for you to replace what, that's part of what they're going to do, or something like that.
I guess that's why we are having the discussion today.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Right now, we're just exploring options.
Okay.
And one idea was to make a larger hangar there, upgrade the FBO, because we're overflowing. I can't grow the business anymore. Like Aaron said, the dynamics are changing. We're seeing more and more German aircraft. We don't have that service at the airport.
Right.
We'd like to be able to take care of people.
Right.
One idea was to build a larger hangar, move the existing hangar somewhere else. Another idea is just remodel that hangar, build a bigger hangar somewhere else, and build an office building for the placement. I just want to see where the growth that the airport wants, make sure we're aligned with.
Oh, okay.
With there, that's all we're doing. Because I don't want to go spend a bunch of money on engineering and architectural drawings and stuff if we're not even talking to someone. That's all.
So conceptually, you want to know whether we're in favor of you expanding.
The pros and cons of that location.
Okay.
So Scott, explain just a little bit, if you would, for my benefit. Where would you move that existing hangar? Well, just your preliminary, I know you, this is.
The idea was, back by your hangars, we're gonna extend that taxiway. I'd like to put it right by your other hangar, Cache Valley's.
Okay. And then in the existing place, what would you do in that space?
Increase the size of the offices for the FBO, the flight school, make it a modern FBO and have a large hangar. Be able to work on turbine aircraft.
So you do maintenance there?
Yes.
So would you make a taller building or just a larger building?
It'd be much taller and
Can't get,
wider and deeper.
we can't get any turbine aircraft in there at all. We can't even get hardly only general aviation.
Okay.
What would you do with the relocated hangar? What would the purpose of that hangar be?
Probably keep the piston flight school maintenance in that. I mean, we're not like Utah State, obviously, but we have 13 aircraft in our fleet now, and we're flying about 3,000 hours a year, and it's growing quite a bit. Keep 2 full-time mechanics busy, just on flight school aircraft. We just don't have room anymore.
Chairman Kerr and I had a conversation here not too long ago, and we'd like to, I think there's an advantage to having a nice gateway coming into our community. And so I'm anxious to see what you're thinking.
Corporate traffic alone coming in and out of the airports.
Need to
A little
know nicer presses of that hangar.
Well, and we get some calls, people want to rent our hangar to say, hey, we're coming in, we want to put our plane inside somewhere. We just don't do that. I don't have the insurance, I don't have the appetite to do that, and I don't know if that's something you're looking at.
Absolutely.
When we fly out, we hangar our plane every night, wherever we take it.
And we lose business because we don't have a facility to the hangar jets, and they go to Brigham City or to the Austin. So it's a loss for the airport.
A good time to interject Judd's report. We had somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,000 corporate visitors last year, originating from and returning to every state in the union. And so the notion that Scott and Brett are talking about is creating a space that would be more attractive to those 8,000 visitors to the community.
Well, I'm all in favor of that. That's not, you know.
And it has to be ready access.
We were kind of in the weeds, and I just would be rather, you know, conceptually, I think that absolutely that is an appropriate face for the airport and should be welcomed. The rest of the part, we just work out, we figure it out.
And with the parking lot, it's all, we're out of space anyways. It has to be addressed in the future.
Just with USU traffic alone.
Well,
We have no parking for
right.
USU.
I just think we need to be a little bit more global in that whole conversation, with the parking lot and, you know, the use and all of that, and not go from the bottom up, but go from the top down. And conceptually, I agree that leading edge needs to expand and needs to be able to, you know, service the aircraft that are coming into the airport. And we need to take advantage of any opportunity we have to house aircraft overnight if we have the space in, you know, Mr. Wilkinson, maybe we can use his hangar.
Just need a door, that's all we
Yeah,
need.
we just need a door.
If you can do the parking, I'd just interject, put a bus turnaround in there, so we can get anybody to the airport, because that's the other thing, is access to the airport is limited to those with vehicles.
Right,
So if you have
but
somebody else coming out or whatever.
we have, you know, that should be part of that master plan conversation.
We've had a plan from Armstrong, they've drawn up the draft
Okay.
a couple of years ago when we brought it up, so I think they have that on plan.
Good, okay.
I guess my question is, it goes back to the fiber optics line. I hate to have Comcast put a line through an area that we're just going to immediately tear it up.
Are they boring that in?
Well, they bore under the roads, but they'll be trenching.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
I know USU brought fiber optics in, and we brought fiber optics in from First Digital.
Yeah.
You already have it there.
They usually do what they call micro trenching, where it's essentially a big saw, and they cut a very narrow trench, put the line in.
Well,
You guys
if-
already have
if
fiber
that's-
optics, so this is like redundant?
It's there.
It's there to certain points, it's not throughout the entire airport. And that's what they are wanting to do, is to kind of canvass the whole area.
So they want a monopoly on the
Yeah,
fiber optic?
they want to be able to provide the service for anybody who elects to pay for it.
I really don't know how many people in those other older hangars are being they don't spend that much time in those hangars.
So we have no cost attached to this, correct?
No, we just need to grant them this access agreement to come in and put their lines in.
The area between Cache Valley Electric and Leading Edge is probably not available for fiber optics.
Okay, and that's what I've told them.
Okay.
But if Leading Edge was not going to expand in that area, then it could be available. But this juncture, we don't know.
So,
Yeah.
And that one that comes in where the gate is now, it's not gonna be good either, that's gonna get dug up in 3 years too. What's your master plan?
I'm not sure which,
Where it goes over by Cache Valley?
Cache Valley Electric and the access gate.
Yeah, the gate's going to be relocated.
Taxiway India expansion.
yeah.
I just have a question about the agreement. I presume that Logan City has a franchise agreement with this company. And I'm just curious if that franchise agreement would apply on the airport or not, or if we should have a separate one for the airport. I think that'd be a good opinion. Maybe the Logan City attorney could tell us.
Yeah, Kimber could probably, Kimber or Craig.
Because if the existing Logan City franchise agreement does not apply on the airport, then we might want to have our agreement with them be a franchise agreement as well. Because that's essentially what they're doing, is they're coming into our right of way, and then
To be a sole provider.
yeah, to be able to have access to customers, and there should be give and take in that agreement.
I know the university's talking with Xfinity to have them come into our hub and go from there. But that's above my pay grade.
So, yeah, I agree with David. I think that would be a good conversation to have with either Kimber or Craig Carlston. Find out, because we just barely completed the agreement with them, the extension of the agreement with them. And I don't know whether it covers the airport or not.
Yeah, if it doesn't, we could probably use that franchise agreement as a model for
Right.
our agreement, because it'll cover things like when they have to repair things, when they have to move things, what access they have, how much they have to compensate us for being in our right of way.
Right.
It
And
also-
it's not usually their standard agreement, because we start with their standard agreement, but we made several additions, corrections, and changes.
So I do have this access agreement that has been signed by you, David, and I'm wondering, should I hold off? I mean, they're waiting to receive it before they can
Yeah,
proceed.
let's check and see if Logan City's agreement covers it first.
They can wait.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think for my mind, that piece by leading edge is not an option for them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Okay, I will get, I will make a phone call to Kimber and probably have to give him this agreement for him to review, and he can compare it to what agreements that he already has.
right, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was.
Scott, what more can we do to help you?
Where you wanna go, I guess. I mean, we're willing to invest in the airport. I've been there since '96. It's kind of home. Like to continue being here. We're willing to invest and do a major capital investment for the airport. I just wanna make sure that it's what you all see. And the airport, that we are aligned.
Flight line access is a very poor use for parking. And so that is probably not a case of either or, but where do we move parking? I mean, if you go to Salt Lake International, you got to take a bus from employee parking to the terminal.
They'll look at Ogden, they build a huge parking lot.
Yeah, so the question is, you know, in the master plan, the best utilization of the flight line and then the best place for parking. And is your thinking consistent with the comments that Brett had regarding the gateway and as part of your expansion?
I mean, we are, many people that come to the airport, we're the first, representative of the community. And tell my line staffs, like, we are ambassadors of Logan. We've got to make it a great experience. Right now, can't do that.
Yeah. Okay. Question, how is, on the athletic charters, are they still bringing their TSA inspectors in with them, or how's that handled? What?
It's only on the football charters.
Because,
Basketball, they're small enough, they don't.
okay, but they bring their own TSA with them on the charter?
Yeah, come through the back of the hangar and go up front, it would be a lot better, if it was a little nicer.
A little louder, please, Kim.
They come through the back of the hangar, they let them off the bus on the outside, they come through the back of the hangar, go through the hangar for the safety, and out the front to the airplane, so it would be nicer if it was a little nicer area for them.
Okay, so they're using your hangar space right now for TSA inspection?
Yes.
Okay. But you are providing that space?
Yes.
So, all right. Any further questions of Scott regarding his planned development expansion?
No, I look forward to seeing what you're gonna do.
So are we.
Okay, thanks. Judd, my man?
Okay.
Now you get to talk about projects.
Now I get to talk about projects, but the system was back up and running now, so with that extra 10 minutes, in 2021, there were 2,302 business jets in and out of Logan. A little over 11,700 arrival seats, 12,429 departure seats.
You came up with that fast.
Like I said, I only checked once, and I honestly, I apologize. It was down when you and I had spoken, and so it's back up, and it is an easy number to get to. But point being is you have a significant amount, and that's just the business jets. That doesn't count. I mean, a lot of business aviation in the U.S. is not on a jet. Most businesses are operating out of a 182 or a 210, a four-seater or a six-seater plane. It enables that small manufacturer to get out. So if you're selling tractor parts, you may not have access to a Gulfstream type aircraft, but you are able to get out to your clients in surrounding states and back, whether that's something based out of here, going out to those surrounding states, or that surrounding state coming in to service a business here. So those numbers just represent the business jet class aircraft. so much more of aviation is not in the Hollywood jet. It is in the workhorse of the smaller general aviation fleet. So it's these pilots that are, they may be heading off to the airlines, but another place where they get a lot of that experience working up to that point is with these smaller type aircraft. So that only represents a small portion of the business that's utilizing your airport.
And even with those numbers, if my math is right, that's 30 people a day.
Mm-hmm. And with those aircraft, the average departure number of seats on the plane is 10. So you're not talking about big jets, but these are, again, are still just jets. So it is a significant impact, and it's the multiplier effect of that impact within a community. So it's not just that $1 of money being spent on, it's that multiplier effect within the community, and having this resource of the airport to support that in the airport itself and then the larger community really is something to foster and help develop. And we do that with the different types of projects that we have going on. So like the project that was done last year, the biggest one obviously was the runway, and Lee went over that. With this year's upcoming projects, there is the pavement maintenance, and Eric and I were discussing that yesterday, and working with trying to get down a date in April to have that pavement maintenance. The pavement maintenance, it is primarily for the crosswind runway 10-8, but it also addresses a connector taxiway, taxiway Delta, and that was some of the stuff that had the 139, the ghost markings on 139. So the primary focus, or the largest portion of the work, will be done on the crosswind runway, but it also takes into account the connector taxiways that were addressed in the 139 corrective actions from last year. And some of those were able to be addressed in conjunction with the runway project, but taxiway Delta was a little too far removed to be able to get that included within the runway project. So we don't have a date yet, but we're working towards an April timeline. So definitely before the May option, or the May activities, and when it's good weather. So it's that catch of today's going to be beautiful, snow forecast for tomorrow. So that's what we're trying to avoid. It will be a couple of day process. We're not looking at a very extended process, but it will be a multi-day process that will affect the crosswind and those connectors. The primary runway and parallel taxiway will not be affected for this project. So some annoying operations, but not closure operations. Next up is the airport master plan, and I just have a couple of quick slides to give you an overview of what that plan is. So it's very high level of an airport master plan. Oh. A couple of quick slides of what is a master plan. There's really two, I'm going to move this up here so I can. It really consists of two main components: an in-depth narrative investigation that will help develop a large plan, and then the airport layout plan. So the development, and this is going to be a process that will take, it's a significant project and with significant time. It's well over a year-long project. The development plan will develop forecast for the airport based off of, and it starts with a snapshot of where things at today, and then using that to forecast future demands based off of several different mechanisms. We'll use several different forecasting models for that, and develop short, medium, and long-term projects, and then identify and evaluate the needs one, what you have, and two, what you need. And then we'll put it all together in a graphical representation of the airport layout plan. The ALP sheet, yeah, you've definitely heard and you've seen examples in previous meetings of a whole lot of busy lines going on of an overview map. They actually all have individual meanings, so it's not just a spaghetti bowl of lines, but they all are very specific to different needs and requirements for proper aviation or airport design. And they cover everything from the airspace above and around the airport down to individual tie-down spots. All of those are taking into account what you have and what you decide is going to be the best moving forward. So, two main components of the airport master plan. The objectives. So we're going to look at your future demand, obviously make sure everything is compliant with design standards, and that's one of those that this is a process that gets updated as time progresses. The best thing you can do is look at it, the ALP and the master plan, as a guideline. It's not a blueprint. It doesn't say you shall build this building here. It says here are good options for how you can build different buildings. But just because the ALP shows 2 50 by 50 hangars doesn't mean you can't go and build 100 by 50 hangar in that area if that's what a particular future user wants to make happen there. So it's a guide for moving into the future, not a blueprint. And you're going to do that, and we will have everything set up with current FAA designs. One thing that is constant with the FAA is change. And what was compliant 10 years ago is not compliant today. So we're going to make sure that everything, see if what is compliant, what may have to be changed in the future, and then develop a plan to bring it into compliance with the current FAA standards of today. Now, you've heard a whole lot of really exciting things for the airport today, between the fire needs, the 139 needs, the snow removal equipment needs, private hangars, as well as business hangars, as well as education. There's a whole lot going on there. What can private businesses and private entities do? What does the airport need to do? And we don't have a blank check. No one's sitting on the pot of gold, so it's coming up with a plan to be able to bring that, make that plan come into a reality with realistic expectations. So it'll be designing and developing a priority and a phasing plan to get there. Some projects may be very high dollar and you can't just sit down and write a check for it today, but it doesn't mean it can't come into fruition with multiple projects phased out. So that's what this plan will help develop. Looking at the long-term facilities, because when you're talking about building large hangars or FBO terminals or dealing with the next generation of aircraft, that's not going to be there for 5 years or 10 years. That's going to be there. I mean, we're talking about hangars being around some, you said Bill, you've been here for 50 plus years working on the airport. Some of those hangars were probably there when you started hanging out here. So we're not talking about just the needs of today. It's figuring out that plan that's going to work for the next 50 years with some of the infrastructure going in there. And the end result is a roadmap looking into the future. The way it will happen, there's a general timeline, and I might zoom in so we can actually read these. The very first step is the scoping and grant coordination, and this has been completely scoped. The grant has been submitted. Actually, we were the first master plan in the Denver office this year. Everything is submitted. It's literally waiting on the grant. It asked to get a draft of the grant award letter, but they couldn't put one together. But that is the next step, is the grant offer and task order. So we should see one of the first grants out nationwide this year, just because we're really ahead of the game. So it should be able to get things going quickly. There's the technical advisory committee will be kind of the first step that you as the board need to establish, and I'll come back to that one on the last slide. It will definitely involve developing a plan that works for the community. So there will be public outreach that will be going on throughout the program. Several key components. We'll have a kickoff meeting, and then there's a whole lot of work we will be doing. Probably Lee will get tired of having all the phone calls that we'll have to do. It'll be a lot of work for him. We will do it, but it's just no one knows the airport better, and so it will be a whole lot of interaction, not necessarily in front of we'll give constant updates, obviously, to the board, but be a whole lot of work going on behind the scenes, developing the inventory, developing the forecast. The forecast have to be approved by the FAA, and once those they'll go out in the first working paper. And the Technical Advisory Committee will be reviewing all of the different working papers as we move forward. Once the forecast is accepted, then determine the facility requirements. Okay, here's what is approved by you and approved by the FAA as the level of growth that is expected over the next decades. What infrastructure is needed to support that growth? And that's going to be the facility requirements. And then we will develop multiple alternatives of here's options 1, 2, and 3 of that meet, take into account the forecast and what you have, give different options for the future facility requirements, and here's some development alternatives and which way do we want to move forward. Again, continued public meetings, so it's not just the Technical Advisory Committee, it's not just the Airport Authority, it is the private pilot that is a rusty private pilot and wants to get back in but wants to be involved in the community, and this is giving them a chance to be involved with this process. We'll select an alternative, and then we will start developing the airport layout plans and the financial plan to meet that, coming up with that long-term phase, the short, medium, and long-term phased approach for the master plan. Finally, once that's done, it gets submitted to the FAA, and then it can do an airspace review. One of the things that, if you recall from the runway project, we were able to get ahead of the game on the master plan by getting a full aeronautical survey done of the airport during the time of the runway construction project. So we actually have a lot of that data, and it's a very large process. It's a 6-figure analysis of the airspace from the air and from the ground. So we actually have that already in hand, and so once the plans are developed, we can jump right in versus having to wait some time for that to happen. And then finally, the project is done. So this is, 18 months is a fair estimate of a timeline of this process. A lot of it deals with review, sometimes with the forecast. The last master plan I did, it took 2 months to get a forecast back from the FAA, despite weekly encouragement. So there are certain things we can try to do we'll always make sure that the project is moving forward, but there are going to be certain times where we just need to we're going to have to wait and get responses. And that comes both from the FAA as well as from having an active technical advisory committee. And so what is the TAC? The TAC is airport stakeholders. It's big enough group to cover a spectrum of perspectives, a small enough group that it doesn't get lost in committee. So it's usually in that half dozen, 8-person range is a pretty big one. But it's going to be a mix of airport stakeholders. And that will be this will be one of the first tasks on that previous one. The very first task is establish a technical advisory committee. So it's figuring out whom do you want to have with an insight. So it'll obviously likely consist of some of you, maybe some of the people in this room, maybe some of the people not in this room. And that will be your decision. And when we do a kickoff meeting, once everything gets going, we'll go into a little bit greater detail of and some recommendations of how you can approach developing that TAC. But they are just individuals that can provide feedback on working papers and get the community perspective. So that is a very brief overview. If when we do the kickoff meeting, for the formal kickoff meeting, you'll see a lot of this information duplicated. But that's the general overview of the master plan. And the basis of that can kind of go into the next item on the agenda is you've got all of these, at the end we'll have all of these projects that every one of them everyone will want to see as the top priority. How do you get it funded? And that leads into, I don't have any more graphics, but, whoa. Into infinity.
And beyond, you're the only one left.
The way those things get funded is, depending on the projects, there's private funding. Individual hangar, there's 3 hangars that will be developed. Existing hangars and future hangars will be in the airport master plan. They could be funded privately. There are aspects on the airport that could be runways or taxiways, new taxi lanes, infrastructure, and general infrastructure. And that can be funded with combinations of public-private partnerships, depending on what things are, or it can be more federal, based off of more standard funding, which is through the Airport Improvement Program. With that, there is an annual entitlement money that is allocated to airports, and then that's planned out in a capital improvement project list that goes forward into years. And then you can plan ahead for projects. You can use the entitlement funding. You can also get discretionary funding. And occasionally other funding has come out, such as the supplemental funding. That's what paid for your runway project. And most recently, there was the very large infrastructure bill passed last year that was, it's now referred to as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or BIL. So you'll see a lot of BIL acronym out there. And with that, it is a supplemental funding source for the next 5 years. Airports are receiving funds based off of the classification of your airport. Most of the airports in Utah are getting $110,000 a year, each year for the next 5 years. And those are going to be for the small GA airports. And they're based off of basic, and make sure I get my terminology right. They're based off of the FAA classifications of an airport, and the dollar values range from 110 primary airports and hub airports. I mean, Salt Lake it's its own animal. It's getting millions upon millions of dollars. But you're actually getting the largest amount of general aviation at $295,000 a year for the next each year for the next 5 years. One thing that's slightly different, and well, step back. The first overview of that money is that it will be allocated and spent similar to the AIP funding, with some caveats. They really have, even though it came out months ago, they have not said explicitly, here is exactly what you are allowed to spend your money on. They came out with one blanket statement that if it's AIP eligible, it is the BIL money can be spent on that. So that we do know. They also added in a caveat that if it is PFC eligible, it is eligible for the BIL. Now, PFC is one of those things that if you've ever flown on an airplane, you've paid it. You just didn't know it. If you look on your airline ticket, the list of funds includes a tax of $4.50 that the airline charges you, and that money goes to the airport. Now, even though you don't have a commercial service operation going on here, the BIL money does bring into account the money you can spend those PFCs on. So that could potentially help with terminal type infrastructure. There's a whole other list of projects that are not normally eligible through the normal funding process, but now they are going to be eligible. So the PFC list comes into play. One thing that you have done, and we're actually doing with the master plan, is borrowing money. So next year's money is actually is what's funding the airport master plan this year. That cannot happen. So you can save up money with the BIL, but you can't borrow ahead, like the AIP. So it's one of those where it was critical that the funding got passed immediately. They still haven't come out with the final explanation, and it's coming out in piecemeal. There was a video conference last week describing that bill funding, and that last 5 minutes was the summary of the hour-and-a-half long conference. Like the AIP, it will require match funding on your part. So with that 295, that would relate to the state anticipates also being able to do match funding. So for each year, that would be an additional approximately $16,000 of local funding that you would have to come up with in order to utilize that funding. So it's a budgetary need. They passed the law in November, and they said, we need to get this money out now. So technically speaking, there is money available right now. That money has been allocated to the 2022 federal budget. It can roll over, you can save it, so you don't have to, it's not a use or lose this year, but you would have to come up with that additional match funding. So that's kind of a very broad overview, but it's a great project or a great opportunity of additional funding. And it can go towards the airport. It'll be working a lot with the FAA. You'll actually see a new name. So Leah talked about Jesse Lyman helping out a bunch from the FAA. You'll actually have a new engineer on any project moving forward. His name's John Mitchner. He's brand new to Denver, but we've actually worked with him out of our New Mexico office. So Eric Rivera, who's done a lot of your engineering, he actually started with Armstrong in New Mexico. So he's worked with John for the better part of a decade. So you will see a new FAA person.
Is that just for the BIL firms, or is it going to be permanent?
He is permanent. He's going.
So it's going to encompass regular entitlement.
Yes, he's basically the new Jesse. Yeah. So he will. It's a pretty recent move within the last couple of weeks, but he's been great. Our cohorts in New Mexico were actually really upset because he was their favorite engineer with the FAA, so he's very competent. But it will be a new face in person that you'll have to be interacting with. But we will be working with them to run these grants for both the AIP and the BIL. So, broad information, but questions?
From a strategical standpoint, we probably would most likely use the bill funds for eligible but low priority projects, because all of the normal funding programs will still be in place.
Correct. This is absolutely supplemental new funding, not replacing, or overall, it's basically doubling the FAA budget for the next 5 years with a little bit more flexibility.
Are they going to go ahead and use this supplemental funding to replace not your entitlement,
But discretionary?
Discretionary funds?
They have not come out and said that boldly yet. I think it's, anytime the bill funding is used, they will run it as a completely separate grant. So if you have, say you're building a brand new runway and they use both fundings, they would actually stick you with 2 grants that you have to deal with. We'll deal with that for you, but it'll be doubling your signatures and the tracking. It's potential that if there was a change order or something happening, they may say, hey, let's tap into that funding. But it's a big unknown.
It's really not.
Extra money.
Your access to funds.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have this other source to go to rather than our discretionary.
Yeah. So it will come down to proper planning and placement of projects on a list going forward. And that will be a task for the coming weeks and months of figuring out the ordering.
Any questions of Judd?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that update. In view of the hour, we'll, unless there's anything pressing, we will adjourn and reconvene sometime in the next 90 days.
You survived the vote.